Hey, welcome to Talk It Out, Talk It Out, Talk It Out from my crib. So I had to go back to my old group, so hopefully people will see that it comes live and see that I'm here versus on my new page, which evidently I have to be having my page built for like 60 days before I can do a live. So obviously something I should have looked into prior to this, but I didn't. Either way, hoping that I'll be able to share this on my other page that I have set up. So that kind of stinks, but we'll see what happens. So still here. I'm from my home today talking to you all. I have my dogs running around, so I will apologize ahead of time if they start barking or whatever may take place. Because more than likely that's what's going to happen is they will do that. But so I want to start off with, so I've been really trying to take notes, even though like I remember this as if it was yesterday. Like whenever I talked about this on Talk It Out, just kidding, this is Talk It Out, on TikTok, I felt rushed. So any of you who are on TikTok, like you can only do like a 10-minute talk, and I didn't do it live there just because I haven't done a live yet on TikTok, but anyways, after watching somebody's video there, encouraged me to share my story again. So I shared it that day, just spur of the moment, 3 different parts that I did, but I really felt like I cut out a lot of pieces, meaningful pieces, at least meaningful to me, that I think is worth sharing. So just trying to take notes, because it has been 10 years that this all went down for us. But even though I remember as if it was yesterday, like I'm old, getting older, and so my memory is not all that great. And I just know there's just special pieces that I really want to really share during this time. So I chose to do another live. Hopefully I remember this time to download it and save it, and plan on posting it on YouTube also, as I'm still trying to figure out this whole social media business as I go. So I want to start out with, first off, what I found. It's called trust. And so I'm going to start with this, and then I'll jump into what happened to us in 2015. So today, just trust. Trust who you are, trust where you are, and trust where you are going. Trust that God is placing and removing people in your life in order to bring you where He wants you to be. Today, just trust. Trust in your strengths, trust in your abilities, and trust that every obstacle is an opportunity. An opportunity to learn, an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to become the best version of you. Today, just trust. Trust Him, trust His plan, trust His will, trust His way, and trust that whatever He has already written is far better than anything you could have ever wrote. So I just love that. I love that, we are all put in places at certain times in our life. Like we don't always realize that. We take that for granted of why God let things happen to us, for the good, for the bad, whatever that may be. We question that. And sometimes we don't get those answers until later. Sometimes we don't get the answers at all. But, anyway, 2015, let's just kind of jump into it. I've got some things on my laptop that, I had written a while back, and I'll share that later on, but I'll be looking at my notes just because I tried keeping myself along. I was never good about putting outlines together, even though in school we had to learn how to do that. I sucked, but I hated school. So school and I just were not like the best. But so this all took place back in October of 2015. And to be exact date, October 17th through the 26th of 2015. I wrote 2025, just kidding, 2015. And so just some things that I want to touch on, and I apologize ahead of time. This is probably going to go for a while, but the bonus to live is you can jump in and out and go back and watch later on. So, and hopefully you'll do that and share our story. So things I'm going to touch on is what trust that I just read to you has already touched on. Being in the right place at the right time, putting people in your place, in your path for a reason. I love the fact that there are so many people still out there that we haven't met that are going to make a difference, or whether for the good or bad in our lives. But I love knowing that opportunity is still out there. So from coming from the VA, even prior to the VA, I've always been about customer service. It's just, if you've got customer service, like, you can be trained to do any type of job, whether you've got schooling in it or not. I really, truly believe that you can be trained to do any position, just having that customer service. Gonna kind of hit the empathic side and just being kind, how just empathy, it can suck to be so empathic. But at the same time, it's really a gift to have. But being empathic and just being kind. And then I'm going to hit base on, if you've heard of the air evac or looked into it, like, I'm going to highly, highly, highly recommend that you look into it. After hearing everything, from our journey. And it's just funny. Like I said, I saw a video last week on TikTok that made me do this. And just, I posted yesterday, even though I said I'd do a live yesterday and didn't. I posted yesterday how something's been tugging at me, left and right, to just share this story again, including when I was at Walmart the other day and ran into, Tiffany Ellerton, and she's like, "Hey, we talked about your deal from 2015, Kevin Fear, who is the one that we went through for air evac, he was presenting or something. I don't know if it was at Chamber of Commerce or we had the police night or whatever at Cannon Park that I was not able to make it to, but they may have been there, and I think he just kind of spoke. And so he does share our story. I hope a lot of people just share the story. Honestly, I know that Kevin does. I know that nurses that crossed our path during that time frame share our story to this day. And you're talking, it's been 10 years and almost 10 years. And the story gets shared for many reasons. And so I love that. I at the time, I didn't love what was happening, but now I can appreciate that and know that there was a reason why it happened. And it's because we are to share our story. And so here I am. Jeff can't share a whole lot about it because, well, he doesn't remember it. So, it's funny to hear him think or talk about it and what pieces he does remember. But it's amazing to me on how much he doesn't remember. Like, when we thought he was with it, he barely remembers driving himself to the hospital. He remembers there not being a parking spot. He remembers getting in the hospital, but it's like bits and pieces of what he remembers. And so that's just so odd. So we remember all of it, except for when it actually happened. But so being in the right place at the right time, customer service, being empathic, and we're going to talk about the air evac. And so many people crossed our paths, whether they were staff members that worked there, whether friends and family, whether it was family members that we met when they had loved ones there sick. It's crazy how it all pulls together. And so I know I'll be all over the place, and I apologize for that. But I just want to hit all the topics of everything during that time frame. So therefore, why I'm sharing the story again. So October 2015, at that time frame, Kelsey was 15, Gracie was 6, I guess. No, just kidding. She was 10. So 10, and then Kelsey was 15. Good Lord. So This is when Jeff still worked on Saturdays. His business was open on Saturdays. So he didn't always get to make the games that our girls would play in when it came to travel ball and things like that. So, but this particular day, it's when Kelsey was in a volleyball tournament during the day, and then at night was going to be in a softball tournament, travel softball team. And I feel like I need to tell the whole story, so I apologize for that. But both sports were in West Frankfort, but honestly, they were so far apart from whenever she was going to be playing or attending that I thought we would have time to really come back home and kind of relax and, then go back for some softball. So as we get there, volleyball starts up. She's playing some games. I don't know if it's like a round, I don't know how it all went down, but either way, she was going to be playing late to where she was not going to be able to come home. So therefore, during break time, Gracie and I had to come home and gather some stuff for her softball. And so when I came home, walked in and there was like half-eaten food on the counter. And when I walked around the couch, then Jeff was laying on the floor, which is not an unusual thing for him because he's got back pain. He's, every morning, dealing with pain of some sort. And so for him to be laying on the floor, stretching out was not an uncommon view for me. So it didn't startle me. I was like, hey, are you okay? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'm just, kind of hurting a little extra today. Like my chest kind of hurts, but yeah, I'm just kind of stretching out. I was like, oh, okay. So I go and do my thing. I go and gather, Kelsey's stuff, whatever. I go back, sit on the floor with him, kind of just ask some questions, make sure everything's okay. And, he's just, my chest just feels weird. Just a little, it hurts more than usual. And I said, well, do we need to go to the emergency room? Like, chest pain's not anything to mess with. And he's like, no, it's not like I'm dying or anything. Legit, his words. And I was like, okay. I said, well, I have to get back to West Frankfort. Are you sure you're okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. I was like, okay. Gave him a kiss. Gracie and I go on our way back to West Frankfort. And this is where, I don't know what the time frames are to really say exactly of how everything went down. But I would guesstimate a good hour, 2 hours had gone by. My phone rings and it's Jeff. And he's like, hey, so I'm going to go to the emergency room. And I was like, okay, well, are you okay? Like, what's going on? He's like, well, I just threw up a bunch of blood. And I was like, okay. I said, so was it bright red? Was it dark? What's going on? And he's like, it was bright red. So then I knew it's some kind of an active bleed, no more than what I know about healthcare. But, as far as that goes, I just knew it was active because it was fresh blood. And so I was like, okay. I said, well, and trying to keep my brain is already all over the place, but I'm trying to keep a straight face because I've got little one, Gracie, who's standing there next to me and hearing my side of the conversation. And so I could only say so much and not try to freak her out, but I'm sure my look gave it all away. And I was like, okay, well, we'll meet you there. And so I hung up and she's like, what's wrong with Dad? I said, well, he's just not feeling good and he's having to drive himself to the emergency room. So I went to go tell Kelsey. I was like, hey, I'll just keep you up to date. She wanted to go. And I was like, no, just go ahead and finish off here. I said, everything's fine. I'll keep you up to date on what's going on, whatever. So she stayed. And so my girls were like me, which I would think any human, when you start hearing things like that, your brain's all over. You think the worst of everything. And so my kids worry just like I did. And, but she stayed. And so we haul butt to Carbondale. So again, we're in West Frankfort. He's in Carbondale. Haul butt to Carbondale. And he's already checked in. He's, in one of the emergency rooms waiting. I go back to see him. Jeff's parents, I think, were there already, had met us there. So they stayed with Gracie. I had gone back to go see him before anybody else did. And I mean, he was pale, but like we took selfies. We were talking to each other. You know, like he didn't look like he felt great, but yet didn't look bad, you know, crazy bad. And so when I walked in, there was a little cup, and I was like, oh, what's this? He's like, oh, that's my stool. And it was like all blood. I was like, okay, so now you're throwing it up. It's coming out of the other end. Like, okay, this can't be good. What's going on? And so I think, you know, at this time we're waiting for like lab results to come back, you know, different things like that. And they had already decided that they were going to, admit him at that time. So I don't know if we were waiting for a room. Like, I don't really remember what all was going down, but, you know, went out, let his parents know what was going on, you know, and just said that they're planning on doing further tests later on. So this happened to be like a weekend also. So Carbondale has like the Halloween, you know, bashes around here. And this was like pre-Halloween weekend where usually college students take over the streets, whatever. And so like the nurses that were in and out of the room, like I carried conversation. I know, hard to believe, but I carried on conversations with them, and we just got to talking, and they were just like, you would believe all the crazy crap that comes in here during this time frame and whatever. So just excellent people. Like they talked, they weren't hateful. Like it, you know, it was a good experience for us to be in ER. So he eventually gets admitted. And when I read to you, like my, like recognizing people later on, like I really get specific. Like I don't know if I started at that time or not, but I started keeping notes in my phone of people that we came in contact with, people that were just, they were just nice. They weren't even on his case, but yet they were just nice. And like that just goes a long way. Whether you think it does or not, it truly does. Or at least to me it does. So he ends up getting admitted. The nurses, I called them Amanda Square. There were two of them, both Amandas, and like super sweet ladies. You know, we were just immediately talking, joking around, like whatever, getting him all set up. So he gets set up in his room. By this time again, I don't know what the hours were like at this moment, but so he gets in his room, gets all settled. Kelsey's like, Mom, like, I just want to leave. I can't, like, at this time she knew he was being admitted. She's like, I can't concentrate. Can I please just come? So I was like, sure. So, somebody was able to drive her over my way. So at this point, Gracie just went home with my in-laws. Kelsey met me at the hospital, and we just hung out in the room while he pretty much well rested. I mean, he would kind of talk a little bit, but not a whole lot. And so, we're in his room hanging out, and all of a sudden he just kind of gets like sweaty and just like pale and just doesn't look very good. And I'm like, you okay? He's like, no, I don't feel right. So I hit the nurse's button, or whatever I do. And at that time, like, you know, maybe two nurses came in, and backtrack a little bit. I don't do well in these types of environments. Like, I don't like seeing my loved ones sick. I don't like a hospital setting. My kids will tell you, my family will tell you, like, Diesel, kind of off track, but he has seizures. And when he started having seizures, like, I would almost pass out watching him suffer from a seizure. Like, I was worthless to him. I've grown up since then, but I was worthless. Like, I just don't like seeing loved ones sick. And so I could start feeling that faintish type feel that I was like, I need to go out in the hallway. So while I went out there, Kelsey and I just kind of hung out in the hallway, sat on the floor. And next thing, we've got like 3 more nurses coming in. And I was like kind of hollering at them, you may want to check his blood sugar. Sometimes, that can be an issue, whatever, which not that they weren't checking that, but just trying to give them some ideas. And they're like, you can come back in here. I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'm good out here in the hallway. Just let me know when everything's clear and good to go. So everything really came back fine. I don't know if he got sick at that moment, or I don't remember for sure, or if it was just kind of like an episode of just, the sweats and just not feeling good. And so they get him settled. We go back in his room. We hang out for a little bit, and let him rest. And then he's like, hey, I need to go to the bathroom. It's like, okay. So I help him get up, and then he goes into the bathroom. I don't remember if I called the nurses at that time or not, but he goes into the bathroom, and I hear him get sick. And the door was like a little bit cracked open. I hear him get sick, and then I can smell the blood, and like immediately go to my knees because I'm about to pass out from just that. I can't see him. I just smell it and know it's not good. And so call the nurses. They come in here. She pokes her head in, and she's like, oh my gosh, this is how much you're throwing up every time you get sick. And he's like, yeah, pretty much. And she's like, okay. Gets them all cleaned up, taken care of, gets them back in bed. And then at some point, like, I don't know if results were starting to come back. I'm not really for sure, but maybe one of the first tests had come back about his hemoglobin. And I tried making notes as far as like a normal hemoglobin for men. Depends on the age, but normal is like 13.5 to 17.5. That's a normal range for hemoglobin. I don't remember what his first one came back as, and my notes that I kept for when I kept track of what his hemoglobin was throughout the time of him being in the hospital. I just know he was in single digits for a couple, well, more than a couple of days, almost his entire time that he was in the hospital. His hemoglobin was in single digits. So they end up, so again, I don't know if those results came back. He ends up getting transferred to ICU at some point in the middle of the night. And I'm thinking at that time was decided that his hemoglobin was way low and he needed a blood transfusion is what was needing to take place. So we get to ICU in his room and settled. Kelsey, this is the part that I can remember as plain as day, is sitting at the end of his bed, holding my purse, and I am standing next to him, and he gets that odd look on his face again. I'm like, are you going to be sick? And he says, yes. And I said, okay. So I hand him the handy dandy little puke bag, and he starts throwing up, and immediately it's just all blood. And his face is covered in it. And I look down at Kelsey, and then like at the same time that all this was going on, he starts going into a seizure. And then all I remember is Kelsey, my purse just flew up in the air, and Kelsey just flew out of ICU. And I'm just standing there just yelling for help because I didn't know what the hell was going on. And so they come in, and I just leave. I leave going to look for her. And I end up exiting ICU, and as I did, I walk immediately to where there's Kelsey sitting on the floor, bawling her eyes out, and then there is a human being sitting next to her, and just holding her and comforting her during her cry. I was like, thank you so much. And she's like, well, I work around the corner. So this person did not even work in ICU. Okay. She worked somewhere in the hospital around the corner, heard somebody frantically crying, came around the corner to check in on them, and saw my daughter, and sat on the floor with her during this time frame and was just holding her. She has no idea who this kid is. And she's just holding her. And Kelsey's trying to tell her what's going on. And she herself is even in tears and comforting my child. So I sit on the floor with them. I think I asked her, I was like, do you mind to still sit here? I've got to go to the restroom. Went to the restroom, came back out, and she just sat there with us until the doctor came out to see us. And so we're sitting on this floor, just like, we don't know what's going on. Have no idea. Doctor comes out, says that he's stable, and then starts to inform us they're going to have to do a blood transfusion. He's lost a lot of blood and all this fun business going on. So that starts up. Again, this is where everything starts to like really just start to run together on time frames and how everything took place. In my post the other day, I told you I got his records out. I thought we had his records from when he was at Carbondale, but I guess I didn't. So the records I actually had on hand, and I've never really sat down and read them in detail until the other day when I knew I was going to do this story. And so, so I'm reading the records, and I told you about his hemoglobin, and like anything below 7 is considered critical. So I know he had readings like as low as 5. Whether it was lower than that, I don't remember, but I know it was at least that low, and he was in single digits for days. I think even the day he got discharged from the hospital in St. Louis, like he was still on single digits, but his numbers were crawling up. So that was a good thing. So they end up finally, at this point in time, the EGD hadn't been done yet. So they did the blood transfusion. At some point, got him set up for an EGD sometime that day. At this point in time, it's probably like the 18th, the next day. And they get him set up. We had people that were part of Kelsey's softball team that swung by on the way home to check in on him and just be with us during this time that we just didn't know what was going on. So our friends and family, they really showed up during this time frame for us. And I'm so grateful, for that. 1, to help occupy the kids, and 2, help occupy my mind. But so they do the EGD. They end up finding a tear. So what I've not told you is that, Jeff, he has issues and still does with dysphagia. So that's like when he's trying to eat, he goes to swallow and food gets kind of caught and just kind of has to work its way out, or he does something to make it come out. I don't know, but so he was actually set up for November to have his throat stretched out. And then I think the time before that, it's been years, like prior to that he had it done, but he's had to have it done before. And it was just getting bad to where food was just getting caught, any kind of food. So we had set up a time to have that done. So that day that I came home and half-eaten food, he was eating French fries. And a French fry had actually kind of got caught in his throat, lodged, like whatever. Either way, it got caught. And so, not unusual, but evidently it was a little bit different than before because it ended up causing a tear in his esophagus. So when they did the EGD the first time, they found a tear. So this is what I learned the other day when I was reading. It's called a Mallory-Weiss or Weiss, W-E-I-S-S tear. And it was in the lower esophagus. So they found the tear, they clipped it, they fixed that, but they could only go so far because his belly was so full of blood. Like they didn't know if there was any other damage, any other things going on. Like they couldn't get the scope any further. They couldn't see anything because it was his belly was just so full of blood. So they found the tear, they fixed it. Great. Obviously they found out where the bleed was coming from. But they just didn't know anything more than that. And at that time, I don't know. I'm sure it was in his record about the French fry, but Maybe that's just when the pieces started coming together of what happened. And how a Mallory Weiss tear, which this is even more terrifying to me knowing this now because Jeff still has issues, but violent coughing or vomiting can cause that tear to take place. So if you're one who has dysphagia, like, don't mess with it. Like, if you're one who's like Jeff, who, sometimes he has to make himself sick, things like that, like, just don't mess with it. So Mallory Weiss tear, lower esophagus, happens from violent coughing or vomiting. So they fix it, they get him back. He still can, his levels keep coming back low as far as the hemoglobin. And so I know within the first 24 hours, when he was in the hospital at Carbondale, he was given at least 12 units of blood. That's a lot of blood in a short time frame, 24 hours. I didn't realize it at that time, but it evidently is. It's a lot of blood to have to be given. And so really it was coming out as quickly as it was going back in. So he ends up going for another EGD. I don't know if he ended up getting sick again. Like, I don't remember what took place to make this happen. This is where I wish I had Carbondale record so I could really go back and read it. But they ended up having to go back for another EGD. And again, don't know if it was like the 18th and 19th at this point in time, what time frame we're looking at, but in order for him to, like, if he was going to keep getting sick, like, they knew that they were going to have to intubate him. Intubate? How do you pronounce it? Him. So be put on a vent, basically. And so